Jonathan Stewart gets in, fights for more yardage. Stewart to the mouth of the goal line. Touchdown!
Wow, that's just pure Stewart right there.
That's a big-time run by Jonathan Stewart.
Welcome to Bleav in Carolina Panthers here on Bleav Podcast Networks. Do you believe? Rate and subscribe the show on all major podcast platforms and subscribe to our social media channels on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Video available weekly at youtube.com/@Tobacco Road Sports Radio.
Do you believe?
And welcome into a brand new edition of Bleav in Panthers here on the Bleav Podcast Network's exclusive video here on the Bleav Podcast Network YouTube channel. Desmond Johnson here in the house with you, along with the Panthers' all-time leading rusher, Jonathan Stewart. We wanted to wait until the smoke cleared for NFL free agency week. We warned you last week it was going to be a whole flutter of activity day one. Then it would start to peter out. And we actually thought about doing one yesterday. I'm glad we waited till today because some news dropped. Of course it would have. Right after we were finished, the Panthers went out and signed somebody else. So I'm kind of glad we waited a little bit extra time. Thanks for everybody for bearing with us. Please rate and share the pod and make sure you subscribe to the Bleav Podcast Network over on Bleav. Before we get started, though, quick word from our sponsors over at BetOnline. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for betting on all the madness. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion with the largest selection of odds on everything from college basketball to a $200,000 bracket contest. $200,000 bracket contest. BetOnline continues to be your number one sports betting source. From every Cinderella story to every hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with odds, stats, and more from every game, every play, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here. I just finished, Stu, watching my Carolina Tar Heels escape Wake Forest in the ACC tournament. Xavier lost in the Big East tournament, so I think my boys are going to creep in through the back door and get in the March Madness. Last time they did that was 2022, and they got all the way to the national championship game. So everybody pray for us. Everybody pray for Carolina.
Yeah,
they got to play Duke tomorrow night at 7 in the semifinals, and doesn't look like Cooper Flagg's going to play. He twisted his ankle in the first quarterfinal.
They had to walk out, huh?
Yeah, they had him in a wheelchair going back to the back, and honestly, Cooper Flagg's gonna be the number one overall pick in the draft, and it's the ACC tournament. I don't know if they're gonna let him play the rest of this week and just save him for next week. So I think the basketball gods just gave the steel sign to Carolina to go get in there, get in there and go. We're getting everything real quick. We're going to go in reverse. We're going to start from yesterday back. So we'll get to all the stuff that happened on Monday afternoon in just a bit. But the big news, really, what we wanted to start off with was yesterday. Out the blue, kind of really, it was funny. We were texting back and forth, Stu, and I was telling you, hey, man, I want to get on and talk a little bit about the possibility of the Panthers drafting Ashton Jeanty from Boise State. Because we've kind of talked about it a little bit off and on here. Anytime I put it on X, it's literally just, I'm told to go back to my room. Like, literally, like, like, what are you doing? We don't need this, blah, blah, blah. Jeanty's, no, we don't need him at 8. So imagine my surprise, one of the guys that I deal with on Twitter, a friend of mine that's a Panther content creator, hit me up about 6. He was like, well, you can stop that Jeanty talk now. I'm like, what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
Carolina Panthers signed running back Rico Dowdle, formerly of the Dallas Cowboys, rushed for 1,000 yards last year. Pretty good out the backfield in the passing game, too. What were your thoughts when you saw that they had signed him here? It's a 1-year deal, and actually it's probably making Cowboy fans sick to see what the Panthers end up getting for him in free agency.
I don't know what the Cowboys doing over there, but they ain't doing not a god doggone thing.
Mm-mm.
Okay. And if I'm a Cowboys fan and you let Rico Dowdle out of your sights, this is a guy that just rushed for 1,000+ yards for your team. And y'all was boo-boo, right? It's hard to run the ball when you're boo-boo, okay?
It really is.
All right. But he still was able to do that, right? But no, you know what? I'm not upset about it. You know, the Rico Dowdle signing is absolutely intriguing. Hometown kid coming off of, a breakout year, man. That's incredible. And to be able to come to Carolina and to be able to get an opportunity to do that in your home state, you know what I'm saying? That's what this is all about.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if he can, bring it the same way he brought it last year. And if he does that, this backfield with Chuba Hubbard, this offensive line, the mindset coming off of how things ended last year on a high note, I'm excited about this backfield.
Yeah, it gives Bryce another weapon, which is what we've been talking about. It gives him a little speed out of the backfield. Chuba can catch a little bit out of the backfield too, but Dowdle can he's really a third down type of back that can do this.
He'll be more of a slasher type player, but that can also, tote that rock in between the tackles, right?
Give Hubbard a breather.
Yeah, he'll be able to give a breather. And one of the things that you love if you're an offensive coordinator is knowing that if Chuba does come out of the game, you don't have to change your play calling. You don't have to think twice about who's in the backfield on what you want the next play to be, right? If Chuba breaks a 20-yard run, Rico can go in there and do the exact same thing in the same type of formation, the same type of personnel, and get the same job done, right? Yep. So this is what you want in the backfield.
So for those that are curious, because the numbers came out later on today, which is again, I'm kind of glad we waited till today so we could have all this here for you here on Bleav in Panthers. So the Cowboys, they signed Javonte Williams to a 1-year deal worth $3 million. They can get up to $3.5 million. The Panthers signed Dowdle for $6.25 million for 1 year. So you got to kind of have to think, like you said, Stu, to echo what you just said. Why did the Cowboys feel like they didn't want to spend an extra $3 million on Dowdle when Williams, he has an average over 4 yards per carry since 2022. Dowdle was 16th in the league in rushing success rate for the season last year. He was ranked top 10 for a good part of the season. Williams tore 3 ligaments in his knee back in 2022, and he hasn't been the same since. So did the Cowboys second guess themselves and think that maybe they were going to get outbid for Dowdle and jump the gun? Or did Dowdle turn down their offer to go to Carolina to come back home, like you said? Because even the backup is not a guarantee for Dowdle past this year, because keep in mind, Jonathan Brooks, the second-round pick they traded up for last year, will miss this entirety of the 2025 season, but clearly they have him in their plans for the future, signing Dowdle to a 1-year deal, which is why I got a lot of pushback for the Ashton Jeanty stuff. But of course, Chuba is going to be your main back, but as we saw with Philly running down the back of everybody in the playoffs, you got to be able to run the football. Like, you got to be able to run the ball. And whichever way you do it, whether it's free agency, mid picks, first round pick, whatever, that's how you got to go. I will say this, though. I would not be surprised if Jeanty ends up in Dallas, and that's why they let him go in the first place. They're picking 12. Now, I don't know if Jeanty will still be on the board at 12, but I don't think he's going to get past them at 12. He's rated like top 4 talent overall in the draft, and I'm tired of this notion that running backs can't be picked in the top 10. It's ridiculous to me. Yeah. If he's a player, he's a player. Go get him. If he makes you better and your conviction says, I want that player, like, look at what Atlanta did last year with Michael Penix Jr. Everybody told him they were crazy. He ended up starting games at the end of the year. Or Bo Nix in Denver. Nobody expected them to draft Bo Nix in the first round. And they did. And look what happened. They made the playoffs. So, I mean, go with what you know. Go with what you know and what you want and go from there. So the Panthers get Rico Dowdle, the only offensive player they signed in free agency over the course of this week. The Panthers going all in on defense and free agency, and still want to get your take on who they signed. Let's start it off like this. Forgetting the players we re-signed, because we re-signed Austin Corbett. We re-signed Tommy Sherman. We extended J.C. Horn, which is one of the biggest thing they did in terms of their defense. Once you start getting into who they signed, these defensive players, who was the one player that stood out for you where you were like, oh, that's going to be an instant difference on our defense?
I'm gonna have to say, what's that big boy's name? Bobby Brown III.
Bobby Brown III from the LA Rams.
From the LA Rams. And yeah, his numbers not might shock you, but you need a guy that's gonna take all the force. Bobby Brown did all the heavy lifting for the LA Rams, giving the linebackers, giving the guys around him an opportunity to go make plays. When you have a one technique, a guy that knows that is as big as Bobby Brown III, first of all, his name, Bobby Brown III, is just amazing.
That's fantastic.
Fantastic name, brother. You get an A+ for that. So thank your parents for that one. And
that Bobby Brown was probably going on when he was born, right? Or probably after, like,
right.
This is 2025. Bobby Brown was like 30 years in his career when they knew what they were doing.
Ain't no telling what they was listening to when they made Bobby Brown. But but this is what I like about it, man. You got Bobby Brown that knows. And then you got Derrick Brown. and then you're gonna have Wharton. You got Wanham already, and you're just basically giving yourself depth. That's what I love about this. Okay. Because what we didn't have last year was depth. Guys were getting injured, guys getting nicked and bruised throughout the season and might not be able to go every snap, like they were going earlier on in the year. And so now you get depth, but now you get guys that have proven themselves to do something. Okay. Bobby Brown is going to allow those other guys to excel. He's going to allow Josie Jewell to excel, Wallace to excel. Taking the pressure and the brunt, of that offensive line being able to get hands on everybody. You're going to have to get at least 2 hands on Bobby Brown every single play. But then guess what? Derek Brown. You're going to have to at least you're going to have to get 2 more hands on him. So listen, like this to me is the most impactful defensively. But I mean, I can't go without saying Trayvon Moehrig.
Yeah, that's
safety.
what I was at. Mm-hmm.
He's a guy that's been making plays. He's been getting better year after year. I mean, coming after 2021 with the Raiders, he's just been getting better, right? And just being a force in the secondary, in the run game. You talk about a guy coming up and sticking a guy, that's him, Trayvon. Yep. Oh, you want to run the ball? Okay. You're not running it today. I'm the safety. I'm the captain.
He had 104 tackles with the Raiders last year, and he's 5 years younger than Xavier Woods, who they let go in free agency. And I can't remember where he ended up, but he signed with another team already. But yeah, them bringing in Mooring from the Raiders is what I was looking at too. He was listed as a top 15 safety by PFF last year. In terms of interceptions, forced completion rate, tackles for loss or no gain, defensive stop, all the stuff the defense needed because they did not have it last year. So
we need guys that can fly around to the ball and make tackles, want to make tackles. I want to be the first one there to make the tackle. I want to compete again. I want to compete not just against the team that I'm playing, but against the guys that are around me. I'm going to get there first. I'm going to get that block. I'm going to hold that edge first. I'm going to hold that edge better than you held the edge last time. You know what I'm saying? Like just the competitiveness that is needed to be on that in that locker room. I feel like Dan Morgan, Dave Canellis, they get it. They understand what their recipe is supposed to be about. We need guys in that locker room that's going to drive the locker room. And I see us picking up guys that have chips on the shoulder that might not have been given the treatment that they may have deserved or may not have had the opportunity to earn, rather, and so this is an opportunity for these guys to obviously they've earned the contracts that they just signed, but now it's time to go out there and prove it, and when you start going out there and prove it, man, that's how you really that's how you start making a name for yourself. That's how you start making a name for the Carolina Panthers.
So the Mooring signing was one of the first ones they had, and one of the bigger ones. You mentioned Bobby Brown III. He'll team up on that defensive line with Derek Brown, and getting Derek Brown back this upcoming season will be like getting an extra first-round pick because he missed like the entirety of the season pretty much last year. He's 24. So, Derek Brown, a stalwart, one of the best defensive tackles in all of the league, will be back to pair with Bobby Brown III. Some of the re-signings they did and what they did on Monday kind of showed me what they may be looking at draft-wise too. Because if you look at what they did, they really focused on the defensive line. Getting Mooring, they focused on that secondary. They re-signed both they extended JC Horn. He's now the highest paid cornerback in NFL history or something like that. So they reward him with the deal after his Pro Bowl season. They re-signed cornerback Mike Jackson, which I thought was very interesting because they got him for a steal, I think like a 7th round pick or something last year. And he became basically cornerback number 2, allowing them to let Dane Jackson go. That when they re-signed him, I'm like, okay, that might have took the cornerback from Michigan off the table, Will Johnson, because if they've signed both of them, you're not going to go and get a first-round top 10 cornerback to play, in a rotation or whatever. So that made me think of that. Then they re-signed tight end Tommy Tremble. They basically re-signed Austin Corbett, the center. So that took some more positions because there was a tight end we've been attached to in the top 10. I was like, I think was his name Tyler Warren or something like that.
They can't say tight end.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know if they're going to go tight end at number 8. And then they re-signed Brady Christensen. So they basically kept their offensive line intact and the backups, because Corbett and Christian at this point became backups to that line. But Christian started all three positions on that line. He's invaluable to them at this point. There's nothing in this, when I'm looking through the list, there's nothing really that stands out where I'm like, oh man, that's a big, huge signing. And I know that a lot of Panther fans are probably upset about that, but you gotta understand, going into this, they only had like 25 or $30 million to play with anyway in free agency. And so for what Dan has done with little he had going shopping, he was able to put together a feast, like
Chef Dan went to the grocery store and he got all of our needs met.
Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna have chicken tonight. It's gonna be great. It's about seasoned up. Like,
yeah,
it's good. Some size.
Got the butter so I can make some gravy. All that.
Yeah. And so now for the ones that are upset, because it started off weird with the Milton Williams situation, where it looked like we had signed Milton Williams to a deal, and then the Patriots came in and just like completely overpaid this dude. To in my opinion, to go over there. Dan took that money he was gonna give Milton Williams and got 3 different guys on the defensive line. Besides Brown, he went and signed defensive tackle Tashawn Wharton from Kansas City, and he went and signed edge rusher from the Vikings, Patrick Jones II. Both guys, rotational guys, and that's what Ijiro does with his defensive line. He's going to rotate 6-7 guys in there anyway, regardless if you're Derek Brown or not. So they did a lot of depth there, a lot of young guys, a lot of hungry guys, like you were saying. So it made it where they were able to stretch that out. And just keep this in mind, they just signed Derek Brown to an extension last year. They were not going to bring Milton Williams in here and pay him more money than what they just paid Derek Brown. They weren't going to do that. Like, it didn't make fiscal sense for it to happen. So I saw the people upset that they had lost out on Milton Williams, but I like what they did here. Is what you're supposed to do in free agency: fill holes. And now you can go into the draft and kind of decide, all right, we're picking top 10. We can let the board fall to us. We can trade back and get extra picks so we can get some more depth. We can do whatever we want to do at this point. So that brings me to my final question of this condensed version of Bleav in Panthers. The one thing they didn't do really was offense over the course of this week. And I was looking over, people are saying we need some speed, which we do. Should the Panthers sign a wide receiver in free agency? There's a couple that are out there, and I have to be honest, I don't know who has signed today. So I was watching the ACC tournament, but one of the names that popped up for me was Amari Cooper, formerly of the Cowboys, formerly of the Browns. He keeps getting traded or moved around for some reason. He's only 30 years old. Should we go after a free agent wide receiver, or are you kind of going the way social media is with the fans, where they're looking at like guys like Ted McMillan in the draft and drafting a wide receiver in the top 10?
I mean, really, all you want is if I were to get a receiver, it would be someone that can take the top off, someone that can really spread the field. And that's the only reason why I was looking at DK Metcalf. Obviously, that would have ruined the grocery store shop.
That would have been like one huge candy.
You would have went there and just got a bottle of champagne and said, "All right, kids, you're not eating tonight. You're just gonna drink champagne. You're gonna watch me and mom drink champain.
Yeah, pretty much.
And you're gonna eat applesauce. Okay.
Here's a Dollar Tree birthday hat. Just put it on.
But because he's obviously a guy that can take the top off, and which will just create opportunities underneath when it comes to guys that are running the routes. You got Jalen Coker, Adam Thielen, Xavier Leggett, giving those guys opportunities to get creative with their route running, the play calling, and all that. And so I still think we could use a guy, that maybe be out there. I mean, Amari Cooper is a guy that has a proven track record. I'm not really sure why he doesn't stick at places.
Me either. I'm really not sure. I think he should still be in Dallas, to be honest. I don't know why Dallas gave him up for like a 5th round pick or something a couple years ago.
We don't know what Dallas is doing. I don't want to talk about Dallas right now.
We really don't know.
Dallas is tripping. But, I mean, if you get Cooper Kupp, I mean, we have Adam Thielen. We have guys that can run routes, I feel like. I think Jalen Coker, he's going to be a guy that's going to come back. We thought he was good last year. Wait till you see him next year. You know what I'm saying? That's the type of guy that I see Jalen Coker to be. A guy that's just going to come and shock the world as far as his abilities and what he's able to do in off seasons, which is basically, when you're in middle school, and because I say middle school because like 8th grade, 9th grade, you're growing, right? There's always that kid that leaves over the summertime and comes back and it's like, dang, dog, You grew 3 inches.
Yeah,
Man, you
4
faster too, right? Like Jalen Coker was really good last year, and I just sense and feel he's gonna be that type of kid. He's gonna be that type of player for us next year. Route running ability, and his size, just being able to box guys out. But I also feel like he's gonna get faster. And when that happens, good luck, right? And so when we look at the draft, I mean, there's guys like Matthew Golden, right? Texas. There's McMillan, right? Bigger target. Not really sure what his 40 was, but really good receiver, I think. But as far as the draft, there's not a lot of guys that just say to me, this is a generational talent. This is a guy that's going to come in here and make a difference day one. So if it was me, I would trade back.
See, that's where I am. Yeah,
because even with the defense, right? Like defensive line, you have Mason Graham. I think Mason Graham, to me, is the best player in the draft.
So that was going to ask you that question. Do you still have Mason Graham sitting there at 8? Do you take a run on him, even though you just sign all these?
I don't think he's going to be there. To be honest,
I
think the quarterback situations kind of took a hit. As far as like the quality of players that you're going to get there. And I just think drafting quarterbacks should absolutely have a different mindset now. Like if we're watching, like, I don't know, I just feel like unless there's a legitimate, like, no brainer with the quarterbacks in a draft, you draft them. But if there's question marks, they got to slip.
See,
but unless you were desperate for a quarterback, and we're not that team, and we ain't got no business having those conversations. And so in my mind, I would trade back because there's also a guy that plays for Michigan. I'm trying to think of his name right now. A D lineman.
Not Graham.
Kenneth Grant.
I think it's
Kenneth Grant. Kenneth Grant, D tackle. Yeah, Kenneth Grant, 331 pounds, 6'4", ran a 4.95. Good Lord.
4.95. Good God.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. So I mean, to me, like, I would like to just get a guy like that. You know what I'm saying? Like Walter Nolan. You know, there's a lot of hype about that guy, but Kenneth Grant, adding him to the mix in the pie in the group of D linemen that we just got, you're really transforming into a 3-4 team, because now you can get creative if you're Evero, right? Mm-hmm. But again, it's all about depth. I mean, you get a young guy to be around these older guys, and that young guy is just going to become even better. Development.
I totally agree. And I feel like they're kind of showing their hand. Like, they're not going to go get a lot of vets. And I was thinking about this other night. Typically, and the 2015 Panthers is a good example of this. Hell, the Eagles from this past year is a good example of this. Usually, you don't see a team get far with a very, like, young offense and defense. You can see a team get far with a veteran established defense and a young exciting offense. We see that all the time. Kansas City is a prime example of it once they get their defenses straight from year to year. So it makes sense for them to spend the money in free agency on the defense and then use the draft picks on offense and go from there. The only thing I keep getting hung up on in terms of getting another wide receiver with the 8th pick, we just traded up into the first round last year to get Xavier Legette in the first round, and specifically want him in the first round so he can get that 5th-year option. And we still don't know exactly what we have with him. He's kind of like Ted McMillan a little bit. Now, Ted McMillan, I did look up his 40-yard dash time. He ran a 4.47 at the scouting combine. So, yeah, he was moving. Yeah, and he's a big body, too. So you get him and Legette. You've got Coker kind of running slot, Thielen in this last year. Now you've got Dowdle with. We can
call our receiving crew skyscrapers if we got him.
See, and we tried that before. Remember, he was on the team. We tried that before with Kelvin Benjamin and some others that kept bringing in. I think it was David Gettleman. Yeah, he kept bringing these big, huge-handed, tall receivers. I don't think that's exactly what Dan's doing, but if Ted's sitting there at 8, I'm like, all right, but there's still so many holes left. All it's really depth at this point. We're both on the same tip. Skylar Callahan has taught us well. Like, we're going into it this year like depth. Yeah. We need bunch. Get bodies.
We need depth.
So it's like, I'm like, should they? I would be more than happy to trade down with somebody into the bottom of the first. There's still wide receivers are going to be there that can help if we want to go wide receiver. And instead of wide receiver, I want a young middle linebacker. You know what I mean? Like, I want a Luke. Now, there is no Luke Kuechly or like that.
There will never be a Luke Kuechly. Don't you ever say that again. There can only be one Luke.
I want someone that can step into the tradition of middle linebacker at Carolina. That's probably the best way I could put it. From Kuechly to John Beeson to Sam Mills, like to Dan Morgan. You know, like he should have an idea of what he's looking for at middle linebacker, and he hasn't really done that yet. And I haven't really heard of any prospects that are like, oh, you got to get this guy at middle linebacker. I could see him trading down to the middle of the first and getting a middle linebacker to be there. Now, they got Trevin Wallace last year, and they played him at middle linebacker.
I will say, we're not talking about Christian Roseboom.
No, and actually I saw that too. Yeah, they signed him.
He had a career high 135 tackles. Okay, the boy is a tackling machine. Yeah. Christian Roseboom
started 11 games.
Yep, 28 years young. Okay, started 11 games for the Los Angeles Rams last season. 5 tackles for a loss, so he knows how to find the ball in the backfield too.
They need help on the linebacking core because right now they really only have Josie Jewell and Trevin Wallace. That's really the two they have.
Christian seems like he's a dog.
Yeah, and that's where you're going to find them. You're going to find them like that. They're going to be at the bottom of a roster someplace looking for an opportunity to show what they can do. And Christian Rosenblum signed last year or yesterday too to a 1-year deal. Started 11 games with the Rams, career high 135 tackles, like Stu said. So Dan didn't do anything flashy. But if you're expecting him to, then you're not paying attention because he didn't have the money to be flashy, to be honest. Like, we were still kind of in cap hell. Next year kind of opens up and a lot of dead money falls off. But he's doing what he can with the money he got.
You know what he's doing? He's taking a page out of the Philadelphia Eagles book or maybe his own book and basically doing things like, hey, Zach Bond, guess what? Zach Bond played for the Saints and he wasn't necessarily a starter. I think he was a special teams guy.
Yeah.
And got an opportunity. And he never looked back. That's all these guys really need. These are professional athletes, man. So you're just one opportunity away, like Christian Roseboom, of having 135 tackles and making a name for yourself. Because that name got you a 1-year deal with the Carolina Panthers.
So there you have it. So I mean that's a good place to stop right there, actually. So for this free agency edition of Bleav in Panthers, again, Dan doing Dan stuff, what we kind of expect him to do, looking for guys that can fit into the system. They promised Dedro they were going to get him some help. They did. They fixed the front to a certain extent, kept both his cornerbacks, matter of fact. So he's got a starting cornerback tandem coming back next year. Derek Brown's coming back next year. The Panther defense should look vastly different than it did the last month and a half of the season from previous year. And now we can kind of look at the offense and go, what toys can we get for Bryce Young to have for him so he can get better? Like, that's the big thing. If Bryce takes step up, then we're different, you know? This
is the one thing that I like about Christian Roseboom before we get out of here.
Yeah.
He played with Bobby Brown III. So think about it. Why did he have 135 tackles? It was probably because you had Bobby Brown III
pushing them people up the way. Yeah.
3 guys.
You know what? See, and that's why people come to Bleav in Panthers, because nobody's even going to talk about that. They both played together. And yes, Bobby Brown's not going to be a sack leader or anything like that. He's a run stopper. Like he's a space clogger. That's what we needed. Like someone just stand in this hole and make sure nobody runs through it. Like,
we don't want the water to leave the tub.
Yes, keep it in the tub. So I didn't even think about that connection between those two and them knowing each other coming over there from there. So we'll keep an eye on that too, because that's super important. Familiarity with each other on the field. And then where did Josie Jewell come from? He came from LA too, didn't he?
Denver.
He came from Denver. My bad.
Ebero's guy.
Yeah. So yeah. Oh, that's right. He was an Ebro kid. So we see they've kind of worked on the defense. We'll see what they do with the draft. Now we can shift our focus to the draft, because we typically are like, let's get through free agency first, see what they do, and then we'll have a better idea of what they might need. Now our suggestions might make more sense instead of just kind of I want this guy. I want that guy.
Yeah, but I don't want nothing. I want whatever Dan wants.
Yeah, I'll let Dan cook. Let's let him cook.
We're out. And just talk about all the things
we just waiting. He's going. I feel confident Dan's going to bring out a plate that's going to be like, here you go. And we're like, ooh.
Yeah, I feel confident that whatever's in the kitchen and that smell that's coming out of the kitchen smells real good.
Smells real good. I like it. So, I mean, of course, this is the time of the year where everything feels good. So we're just like, yay, let's go, Dan, do it. And he's got draft to shine, and we'll see. But I do tomorrow we'll have a Bleav in Panthers extra. My radio show, this terrestrial radio in the Triad of North Carolina. We're going to have on Ricky Raines and Edgar Salmingo Jr., two Panther content creators. We'll talk a little bit more about the state of the Panthers there. Stu, it's at 12:30 tomorrow live. You're welcome to come join us if you're available. I know you're a busy man. So
I'll be going to Palmetto Bluff.
Oh, we got some golf going on?
With the fam.
Yeah. Hey, live that up.
Breaking.
Yeah. My kids on spring break this week too. So we'll have that tomorrow. That audio will be available on the Bleav Podcast Network a little bit later on the day on Friday. But we're going to go ahead and get out of here for this edition of Bleav in Panthers presented by Bet Online. You can watch the video again exclusively on the Bleav YouTube channel. Just check the live tab whenever you go in there and look for Jonathan Stewart's name. I've noticed they started putting your name and whatever we've been talking about before they say Bleav in Panthers. So if you're looking for Bleav in Panthers, it may not say it in there. Just look for one of us or our thing. We're usually in the live tab on the Bleav YouTube channel, and you can find us there more easy. The audio, of course, is on every major podcast platform under the Bleav Podcast Network. So for Jonathan Stewart, this is Desmond Johnson. You've been watching and listening to the Bleav podcast of Bleav in Panthers. We will see you next week. Peace.